Everyone knows they should be posting more consistently on social media. It's just really hard to do. So that's why in my last video, I talked about 4 automations that actually pay my bills. Social media was a big one, right? Because it's one of the highest ROI things you can implement in any business, right? So I got a lot of questions about that, at least, relative to what I'm used to. So in this video, I'm going to dive into the fundamentals, get into the nuts and bolts behind social media automations, okay? What I'm not going to do is give you a bunch of templates and, your sheet of cookies to cut out. We're going to get into fundamentals and get you set up so that you can actually build these things out for yourself and other people's business. Thought being, I used to work in restaurants, right? And at one point I was sous chef to a 2 Michelin star chef. Okay, so I had access to his recipe book, his same kitchen, same ingredients, same tools, same everything. That didn't equip me to be a 2 Michelin star chef. Okay, I wasn't at his level. I had all the same tools, right? My point being is I can get all the sick copper pans and get the recipe book, but it's up to me to cook a delicious meal. So I want to teach you guys how to do that. I think it's the same with automation, especially in the creative workflows like this, to develop your own sense of taste and feel for how to get these things worked out. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to try and keep this as close to one shot as I can. My dog's been barking a lot this morning, so unless he burst through the wall or anything like that, I'll try and keep it unedited. Actually, speaking of my dog, there he was. So the one thing I'm not going to do in this video is dive too deep into prompt engineering, because I've already spilled pretty much everything I know into my school community, right? If you go into Foundations, the prompt engineering course is there to be point of reference, and it takes about 45 minutes to read through, and you can always refer back to it. It's there. I'll give you the templates for how I structure system prompts, but other than that, it's already here, and I'm going to presume a baseline knowledge of prompting moving forward. Okay, so one of, if not the most important part of designing any automation is planning. Having a step-by-step path towards your goal, and then, thinking about what that goal is, who it's for, what access they have, and the steps to take in getting there. I'm going to keep this pretty high level in this particular case because the nuance is for you guys. This is fundamentals of the pieces that you can put in place, right? So step 1 for social media would obviously be research, right? Thinking of what our niche is, keywords, how to get trending topics, all that sort of thing. Writing a brief for the social media post, whether it's a video script or static post, with some hashtags, that kind of thing. And then asset generation, if that's the route we're going, right? Let's say it's a LinkedIn post. We want to have something that catches attention that goes with that, whether it's a video or an image or whatever, right? And then the actual publishing. So from end to end, research, writing, assets, publishing. Those are the 4 things we're going to be looking at. And let's start right at the top with research. I use Tavily for this because it's actually an amazing tool for deep research, and it's designed specifically to be used with API. So if you're on N8N, the first thing you need to do is go to, oops, you know what? I'll do it from over here. The first thing you need to do is get the community node. So you go to settings, community nodes, ta-da, and then we can go install and browse. So let's look for Tavily. Perfect, we found it. Usually it has the N8N nodes part here. This one doesn't. So you just go back over and you go N8N-nodes-Tavily, and then it'll install. I've already got it. See, error installing, already an entry, but that would give you the Tavily node. So anyway, now we got the Tavily nodes. Now we need our Tavily API key. So go over to tavily.com, go sign up, right? I've already got this here. And then it's free. You get 1,000 free searches. I don't know if I've already said that. So what you do is you just go create API key. Let's call this one N8N for now. Boop, go create, and then it'll pop this bad boy up, copy, and then go over here and just add a credential, right? API key, just like that, just like pretty much everything else. Lovely. So that's 1,000 free searches a month, and this output is honestly phenomenal. So I've got this set up with my content creation sort of workflow right now. You want to make sure it's down to query auth because it's looking for stuff. And then your query is your search terms. Okay. So for me, what I went with, I don't know if you guys can see this. Let's zoom in. There you go. N8N agentic workflows, AI, revenue automation, automation finance, blah, 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 blah. These are your search terms. And then you can go down and give it, include domains, right? Specific places to look. So for me, it was YouTube, Reddit, Medium, artificial intelligence, VentureBeat, you know what I mean? Just places to look. So if this was for a real estate client, for example, you would look for their local real estate boards or Zillow or all sorts of blogs, places like that. Again, Reddit's a great place to look. So we've got our search terms and all that stuff. Let's run this and see what it comes out with. So the Tavily search is done, and I realized I didn't talk about the options, which is important. So I find the best results come from the advanced search depth. You want as much detail as possible. The options are pretty limited, basic, advanced. Go with advanced. Also, don't bring in the whole internet. I find 5 to 10 results is best because it gives you the variety you need to pull from, and give you options just to pick what works best for you at the time. I went with 7 because that's honestly enough for me. And the date range, I think the best way to go is the last 30 days because it gives you the opportunity to check out stories you might have missed and you might really want to talk about. Plus, it gives you trending topics and things that are happening like now. So we literally just want to push that entire search result into an AI agent to figure out what it wants to talk about, or what we tell it we want to talk about, and then oh man, the dog again, eh? And then parse it and build our content, right? So that's literally what we're going to do for our prompt, is just pull in the entire results array. So in the Tavily, go down to results and just bring in the whole thing, label it research data, like here's your information, now go. And at the time of writing, GPT-5 is the best model for that. I used to be a Claude guy, but not just parsing and, not just like writing the article, but like the parsing and all that extra stuff, GPT is actually super well suited for. Speaking of parsing, go in and require a specific output format because we don't want it to just return one big blob of text with all of our content ideas. We want to put it out individually. So we're going to get a parser for that, right? Output the insight, the source, the caption, the call to action, all of that individually within each response. Whew, so that's the boring part. Now I'm going to give you a quick sort of overview of my system prompt. System prompt follows the same sort of template and the principles in that course I was talking, or that module I was talking about in the community, right? You're an expert AI automation and business workflow content strategist. That's a lot of words, but whatever. Critically, for the ideas that it makes, you need to output the important parts that you can draw and map later, right? So you need the title, you need the point essentially. So I went with primary insight, what the source of this information was, so where you're drawing from, the caption for static YouTube, for LinkedIn, Instagram posts, that kind of thing, the call to action, so what do you want people to do when they see this, then optionally a video script, right? So just a short video script, something for shorts or LinkedIn, like the short form clips essentially that we can build on later, and then also hashtags, very important. Critically, must not put these objects into a single JSON array. Instead, provide each JSON object on a new line, separate each object with a delimiter. This is very important just to make sure that we are getting things that we can map out later, okay? So there you have it. The prompting outside of that in terms of like what you want the content to do or say, that's up to you. And now we need to log it, right? Each of these different ideas. So we're gonna go into the split out node, and then we're just gonna split output, right? So each of the content pieces that it writes, we want it to split into a different line that we can put into a Google Sheet. Sorry, pardon me. I'm going to let this do its thing, and then I'm going to wait. So I was just going to cut and then come back, but I think you get the idea. This is going to write each of our content pieces. Then the next thing we're going to do is split it by the output. So every idea is going to be its own block, right, with the split out node. And then from the split out node, we're going to loop over each of those blocks and add one at a time to our Google Sheet. Okay, I've got a template for this. I'll leave it with you guys, I guess, in the description. So we'll get each of these ideas into a new row on our Google Sheet. Here, I'll show you what that looks like. Bear with me. So yeah, it's like this, right? And it's going to keep adding each of these here. I've got a way of numbering these without getting too hectic. I want to show you. So it's just an expression here where you go execution ID, run index number +1. So it's like a unique number for each one of these entries so that if I have to match on it later, I don't have to go strictly by title or whatever. I can go this specific one in case there's any duplicates or anything like that. But that is pretty in the weeds. Okay, so this is still running. It takes a minute. That's okay. So we've got all of these ideas. We can take this and orchestrate this however we want. I had a method of doing it where I went like pending, and I would automate some of the image generation or presentation to the user based on like just pull in all the pending content ideas, and then it would mark it as pitched, where it's like I've seen it, approved is like let's go, and then published is when it's actually done, or archived is like this is trash, don't do anything. But the orchestration of this is up to you to like build your menu, I guess. But yeah, see, let's look at one of these ideas actually. What do we got? I can't zoom in. Primary insight, agentic AI inside end-to-end can automatically enrich, qualify, personalize, schedule, and generate proposals. Amazing. Okay, cool. So, I mean, there's an idea. I could write about that. I could turn that into a blog post. I could turn that into Instagram. I'm pretty sure that the proposal generation thing has been done to death, but I mean, maybe there's a different angle on it, right? 10 automation ideas, roadmap. I mean, I just did a video on that, so it seems relevant. LinkedIn, September 2025. I think this is more, that in particular is more just like, watch me spill coffee on myself. I think that's more, us seeing the shift from insiders to mainstream, right? The proposal automation is like where a lot of us start if we've seen, Nick Soraya videos or any of these guys that are just awesome at this job. But now it's moving into like a more mainstream space, right? LinkedIn is talking about 10 automation ideas, September 25. So they're like a year and a half late, but I mean, there it is. Anyway, I mean, people want to talk about it. It's new from this month. That's a bit of a tangent. So we can orchestrate this however we want, right? That's where the nuance and the fun part of like automation planning. So from here, we've got these ideas. How do we want to present them? Do we want to send them out to the end user and they approve things? Do we want to just draft the whole post and like publish it automatically and they just approve the post, or like what do we want to do with this? And that's where the fun part is. But we can talk about that later or in the community or whatever, right? So the next step would be drafting assets to go with this. And that's where I've got, where's the next one? Number 2. Okay, so orchestration aside, you're going to have to do something like this regardless of your presentation, okay? We're going to take those ideas from the Google Sheets, and we're going to give those ideas to an agent that's going to write a prompt for our image or video generator, okay? And again, GPT-5, I think, is the best one for this. At the time of recording, I'm sure there'll be, GPT-7 or something when this video will still be on YouTube. But what we're going to do is literally just take that information, just like we did the first round with the Tavily search, just push it all into the AI agent, okay? Here's the title, insight, caption, script, etc. And then we basic prompt. You're an expert, prompt engineer. Your task is to take high-level information and a short visual description, transform it into a detailed image generation prompt. Super basic. You can learn all the fundamentals of doing this sort of thing in my community. Something I do want to talk about is just a quick architecture hack, I guess, is the execute other workflow node in n8n. So instead of having to write out like your API, like your image call every single time, what you can do is just have all of your image generation tasks, tools, things like that set up as separate workflows. So as you can see, I've got Seedream, I've got Nano Banana, I've got different things like create, edit, combine, that sort of thing. All the separate workflows. So like, let's say if I wanted to change this to Nano Banana, all I would have to do is just change the workflow it's calling, right? I can go Nano Banana, image create, boop, right there. Okay, so with that, how do you actually make those API calls? I'm going to show you with Key AI, but there's Fowl is good. Also, Open Router has Nano Banana, right? So you can use the same API and cost whatever with Open Router, just using their documentation. I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm just going to show you the one. Key AI is, at the time of recording, the least expensive. So what we're going to do is go to Key AI. Oops, I already got the wrong site open. So Key AI, sign up for an account, put a little bit of money on there because these calls aren't free. They're cheaper, but they're not free. And then we're going to go down to Seedream API. That is the image generator that I prefer for now for these sorts of things. Go run with API, and then go down here to request example. We're just going to copy this. Copy request example, head over to, let's just add a new HTTP. Boop. And then you're going to import that request example, and it'll automatically do all this stuff for you. So this is where you put your API key right here. Keep the bare space. Once you get a Seedream API key, which is in here somewhere. My goodness. API market. Is it there? I haven't done this in a minute, as you can tell. Probably dashboard. There you go. Yeah. API key. Boop. And then you just create a new API key. Copy it. Go over into this, paste it right there, and then this is where you put your prompt. Beep. Right? So I'll show you an example down here. You put your prompt right there, and then you want the callback URL to be your instance of n8n. So a good way to get that is actually going into Google, because they always give you, oh my goodness, all of the stuff you need. Callback URL, you can just copy this, okay? When you're making any other credential in another thing. I'm hoping that wasn't too convoluted, but yeah, that's how you do it. And you can just change the model with whatever one you want to actually use. And it's the same for video. Like let's go to Cdance, for example, or we can use Runway or Kling or whatever. Just go to run with API, go down to copy the request and do the same. So any of these calls will be really easy to just set up on your own workflow. Okay, so like you can see Cdance, or let's go like if we want to Kling or whatever, we can just call that particular thing, and we don't have to rewrite everything. We can just call. Hopefully that made sense. So anyway, we got the image. The next thing we need to do is just get that. Okay, so whatever the output is from this node call, we're just going to push that into an HTTP request get URL, and that's that. Right? That will have the image in this workflow that we can carry forward to something else. Sweet. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to set anything like this up with another client or even for yourself. The Google Drive is a little bit convoluted, and if you're doing it remotely with another client, it's a nightmare. So I've actually moved over to box.com. It's the same functionality, actually more functionality than Google Drive, but you can just set this up like elsewhere really, really quickly and not have to mess around with like the Cloud Console and like authorizing stuff and like enabling APIs and all that other stuff. So what I'll do is I'll leave the sign up for the individual plan in the description. You get 10 gigabytes of storage, 250 megabytes for every individual file. That's fine for our purposes. There's also some cool stuff with like document e-signing and whatnot. So this is a platform that's actually beneficial just outside of the storage. You can do a bunch of other stuff. The business plan is $80 a month and it does some cool stuff. But anyway, free account is 10 gigabytes of storage for free. So we'll go through, do this, sign up for an account, then move over into the dashboard. First thing you're going to want to do is just create a folder for this stuff. Name it whatever you want, right? Let's go test. There you go. And then you're going to take this folder ID. Boop. You want this folder ID so that you can tell this node where to place stuff, right? And just put it right in there. So now we need to connect this to N8N. Go down to Dev Console and create platform app. This is very similar to like WordPress. If you've ever done a WordPress account, right? You don't need a description. Just go automation. Who's this for? Customer. Next. Make sure to click OAuth. That's important. Create app. Now we've got our client ID, client secret, just like, you know, Google and all that other jazz. We can go and make that our credential. I'll show you right here. Oh, I already messed this up. Anyway, copy client ID. You guys know how to do this. Put it right there. Copy client secret. Put it right there. Oops. Put it right there. And then we just go connect my account. There'll be a window that pops up that you guys can't see. And then there you go. You've got your box.com account. Ta-da! I'm going to go back to mine for real. Whew, okay, so that stuff's always kind of boring, but we need it. Essentially, the file is there on box.com that we can download, access, do whatever with later on. So now we just need to make note of where that is. So go into the box.com output and drag ID somewhere on your Google Sheet to make note of where it is, and we can grab it later. Ta-da! And you just keep doing that however you want to trigger it for each of those content ideas. Easy peasy, right? So really the only next steps are how you're going to implement this stuff, right? Like I've tried different varietals where, you know, it's just sent to the user for approval, or it's just scheduled on whatever social media platform, or they just stay there in the sheet for review. Like there's a lot of different ways you could go. The first way that I thought of that I found, you know, doesn't work for the consumer public is getting those content ideas and then sending them for approval or tweaking via a Telegram agent, right? Or some sort of messaging app at the very least. What it does is it takes the post, the hashtags, all that stuff, like anything that we would actually put front facing on LinkedIn or whatever, and then the corresponding asset, and then sends it via Telegram to be approved, denied, or edited with an inline keyboard, right? I thought that like that's cool, but it's it's like a lot of legwork for folks, okay? So how you would do that is essentially have another trigger that catches any of the callback requests. So whenever anybody clicks one of those buttons on the inline keyboard, it triggers this workflow, oops, with its corresponding response, right? So it's like approved or archived or it's edited, right? There's some cool stuff you can do with this, but again, I find that less involvement is best, right? So another way you could do it is tying it in with like an assistant agent where you just like make this call. It calls these different image creation and video creation workflows via another agent, right? Create video, edit image, all this other stuff. And then once it has that information, you can send that off to a posting agent, right? Which is lined up very similarly to the creative agent we've got there, right? So you could tell it to post to X, TikTok, Instagram, and it'd be like, yeah, sure, and post boop, 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 or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, right? Boop, boop, boop. No sweat. A lot of different things to think about, but this is the fun part. And it's also the 10% that I was kind of referencing at the outset that you can't get from the recipe book or from the, you know, the best pans or being in the best kitchens or anything like that. The implementation is everything, right? And that's why I don't think I'm creating any competition or anything like that, just sharing the recipes, because it's up to you guys to take it that extra bit anyway. So I really hope you got something out of this. I'd say if I was to just say it again and reiterate, start focused on what the user needs, okay? Not what's a cool workflow. Just because it's a cool workflow, it doesn't mean it's like good in production, okay? So that Telegram example that I gave you, just because I like it and, you know, I can edit images and do all that stuff, it's not actually a good product for the end user because there's still a lot of input that they have to put in themselves. And that's not what most people are doing when they hire you for social media. So from there, make sure you have a steady stream of content ideas, which you can do from the Tavily agent that I outlined at the top there. And I would start building a library of tool calls. So when you need an image generator, you can just plop in that one execute node. When you need a video generator, same thing, edit, all that stuff. And I'll leave a link in the description to Key AI, which is at the time of recording the least expensive one. Very easy to set up. You go run with API, then you go down and just copy the request example, and you can just import it here and it's all set up. You just have to punch in your prompt and stuff. From there, definitely look into my community for the prompt engineering basics, that kind of thing. It'll get you going on how to actually build this sort of thing for yourself, not just prompt engineering, but like how to get into you know, deeper things with this platform and whatnot. Again, this video idea came straight from you guys. So if there's anything you want me to cover, or, you know, you want to get into in the future, leave a comment, send me a message, anything like that. If you want to check out the 3 other automations from the video that this was referenced, you can check that out up here. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one.